Sometimes when I'm thinking about us, before we got lost and we parted, back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, but this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. Sometimes when I'm reasoning about us, I know you got me, it's so effortless. Back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, but this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me?
What if we're no good for you? Wow. Deep question. And today you're going to get all the answers on the FPV News with JB and Itsblunty. Welcome to the stream, you guys. And Blunty, it is good to see you again this week.
Good to see you too, Joshua. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. You know, we're always adding things to the calendar or to the show notes like last minute, and sometimes like even like the day of the show, something big comes out that we're like, oh, we got to get this on the schedule. In fact, sometimes you rename the whole stream and add a new thumbnail. Anything like that happen this week?
I think this might be one of those weeks.
I think so too. What have we got on the stream this week?
So let's do the rundown.
Yeah.
We've got a naked Insta360 kit. We're going to talk about that. That's coming out,
Yeah,
pre-assembled.
Yeah.
Some Skyzone Sky04X issues. Maybe we'll discuss those and see.
That
who
was
those
going
are
to be the biggest story this week. Was the issues with the Sky04X. We're still going to cover it.
We've got Gemfans making some LED props, maybe like the Rotor Riot video.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Foxeer's got a new digital cam coming out with the Shark Byte connector.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
I don't know. We might have some DJI information coming up. Some DJI FPV drone, apparently. I guess people are saying.
Seen a lot of images leaked.
Yeah, DJI Goggles V2, maybe. Finally, some real information.
Yeah, unfortunately, you have to file your paperwork with the FCC before you can sell something, and that is all public information. And
yeah. And we're going to do our community spotlight. So we're going to do a little project on GitHub that might make it easier for you to get some SuperView footage.
Nice.
we've got some new Happymodel drones that are pretty light, and it seems like they're kind of going a different direction, which seems pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then we're going to finish it up with the new TBS Source One frame. We'll talk about pros and cons of that guy.
Yeah, they've updated the Source One, and it's a little bit controversial. So we got a big show. I did something new this week. I put the schedule, the outline in the show notes, in the video description, along with links to a lot of the things we're going to be referencing before the show started. So you guys can check out the links in the video description. They're not affiliate links or anything. They're just links to all the stuff we're going to be looking at as we go. Hello, 507RC. Hello, everybody in the chat. We got 1,000 viewers. Turns out that when you promise that you've got information about the new DJI goggle, people turn out. Go figure. Welcome to the stream. We do this every week, 6 p.m., me and Blunty, and we are going to get to that stuff, but obviously we're not going to open with the thing that you most want to hear, because that's not how you do it, man. That's not how you do it. We're going to start, Got
to lead in.
Stuff. We got to warm you up. You don't eat the steak first. You eat the broccoli. I don't know. Hello, everybody in the Discord as well. All the patrons in the Discord. If anybody does want to leave a super chat, we will read the super chats. We don't get a lot of super chats on the news stream, but let's jump in. Let's jump right in. I think this is in any other week, this would be a really big thing, but this week there seems to be bigger things. Let's check this out. A new naked Insta360 camera from BetaFPV and Insta360. People have been saying these naked GoPros are fine, but why doesn't GoPro just sell us a naked GoPro? Why do I have to disassemble my whole freaking GoPro?
Let's go. Lose control.
Oh no, that's unacceptable. I apologize for your ears. So they're going to do it. BetaFPV and Insta360. What do you think of that? What do you think of that, Blunty?
It's pretty awesome, man. And they were talking in the comments about selling this as like a pre-made kit, so you wouldn't even have to put it together. You just buy it like this.
Yeah, I hope that was my hope.
Yeah, seems pretty great. I mean, any of these like light options are cool. People love the GoPros like that. So I wonder if they can provide any kind of support though for this, or if it'll be like everything else, where it'll be, hey, if you break it, you break it. You know.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, Insta360 has a really good track record. They have good hardware quality. They have all that stuff. On the other hand, BetaFPV, a little more hit or miss. I'm excited. The image quality of Insta360, I think, is not at the level of a GoPro, but it is good. It's good for what it is, and I think a lot of people are going to be buying this, especially if the price is right. I don't think we know pricing. So, yeah.
Yeah, so let's move on. We've got some issues with the Skyzone goggles. Like you said, this was going to be our headline to start off with, but it does look like we had some issues. Some people were talking about the frozen screen. There's a little bit of a frozen screen issue, and there's some fan noise, I guess, in those goggles. So I guess you reached out to Skyzone to get some information about this, right? I
did. I'm sorry. I've lost my freaking show notes window. Where did they go? Oh, it's because I have the Facebook. Hold on. Yeah, so people reached out to me. Somebody reached out to me, and he said there's this post on the Skyzone Facebook group about people having screen lockups and stuff. Let me put this up on screen. No, and that's not. Oh, is the link? Have I got the wrong? Let's try this one. Yeah, very disappointing day with the Skyzone Sky04X. Had my screen lock up twice. Horizontal black bar across the screen, and of course you wonder, is this just a fluke or is this like a real thing? But Skyzone has confirmed. I asked Skyzone for a statement because I'm actually trying to be a responsible, like, sort of pseudo journalist. I am not a journalist, for the record. And they said they had like 7 people who reported the issue. They have released a firmware update that is supposed to address it. Obviously, a manufacturer is, I feel like we have to take that with a grain of salt. A manufacturer is always going to downplay an issue. They're never going to say, oh yeah, everybody's having this problem, don't buy these goggles. But nevertheless, I hope we could probably, you got to take them at their word until you have evidence otherwise. I thought this was a big news item because the Sky04 are such good goggles. And for them
Really
to have
the
like,
only,
yeah.
really the only true HDO2 competitor, I think.
I mean, the Orca is sure, but it's way more expensive. That's the thing. So something going on there. As far as issues with the fan and whatnot, they said that somebody said, well, the fan bearings are failing. Skyzone says it's a problem with the wire, and basically Skyzone's position is if you want service, we'll send you new parts, or you can send them to our service center in China or Europe. Not help if you're not in one of those other countries, but fingers crossed that this turns out to be a fluke and that the firmware update fixes it, and the Skyzone can go on to be as good as I hope it can be. Let's see here. Lord Wolf says my ears are still bleeding. Is it too loud? No, it's fine. It's fine. GQ4 Life, yeah, Skyzone better even with the issues. I mean, if the screen locks up while you're flying, that's bad. You don't want that. So,
yeah, I would say that's a critical issue for sure.
Yeah. Now, the people said that the people who talked to me said it happened after like 30 minutes of having them powered up. Some people wondered if it was an overheating problem. We don't know. But the fact that Skyzone has acknowledged that it's real and released a firmware update to fix it, I mean, to me, that suggests like there might be more than just like 7 people affected. Nevertheless, a little bit of growing pains on a new product is sort of is expected. So hopefully it'll be all right. All right. So, Skyzone, get your stuff sorted out. What do we got next, Blunty? Let's roll through them.
Next up, we're going to talk about Gemfan's got LED props they're showing. Rotor Riot did a video a little while back where Sean put some LEDs and some props. And now Gemfan has got a tease, at least, of I believe it's going to be a collaboration with Rotor Riot on these LED props.
And once again, I don't know what's my problem. I keep losing the freaking stream window. The show notes. I got too many windows open. Hang on. So yeah, I got a picture of this. I made the show notes. I got all the pictures ready to go. Now I'm just slow to get them. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, we got some LED props. That's kind of cool. I can't really see much in there. There's another picture they released. Oh wait, here we got a video. Oh, that's better.
Yeah, there's not a lot in the video.
Oh crap. There was another picture they were putting out that kind of showed how the LEDs were on the props. It's kind of cool. So that should be pretty cool. We'll see how much they are and how durable they are, but at least somebody's going to fly those. It's going to be pretty slick.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if they're doing the same idea as the Rotor Riot video where they're powering the batteries like in the hubs or whatever, or if they have some, other method, I guess. If they're embedding the battery in the prop.
That's the big one, isn't it? Is how to power those LEDs. Are they just going to be reusable, rechargeable, or what? Yeah,
it seemed like Sean kind of had a custom solution. And
it was pretty janky.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see, if they can come out with like a consumer solution that's not going to break for half the people that buy it. If not, though, I think most people want LED props. I mean, I don't know. I personally think so. Most people I've talked to are like, I'd fly some LED props. I mean, if you're looking at props to buy, if they're similar durability, they come out with a decent line of them. I like Gemfan props. And you can like rip them at night or dusk and have LEDs all over the place, man. I don't know. I think they're pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on, you look at the floppy proppies, right? People are interested in different kinds of props. It's just a question of how much they are. I mean, you're going to destroy them if you do any kind of aggressive flying. So it's just a question of that, how much they are and how long they're going to last. Battery in the prop nut, says Marty Gerendank. So battery in the prop nuts, the problem that we had with that when we did the Rotor Riot episode was if the battery has to be on top of the prop nut. Otherwise, the motor shaft would have to go through the battery, which means that it just gets really complicated because it's spinning so fast. If it's slightly off balance, then the whole thing just destroys itself. It'd be cool. Somebody had an idea of powering them via some kind of like inductive wireless charging with a battery like on the arm or in the motor. That was kind of cool.
Interesting. Yeah.
Mike's Adventures. Sorry, Bunty. Mike's Adventures, you're right. They've had LED props for DJI for a few years, but the DJI props are much larger. So you have a lot more sort of room to work with in terms of where to put the battery and what kind of battery to use. 5-inch props are a lot harder. Skadoosh says it'll be powered with unicorn farts. Fuang Ho, thank you for a $2 super chat. Fuang Ho's super chat is, they did call it the DJI V2. There was a render going around. Blunty, we showed this. Yeah. And it was the goggles, and they said DJI V2, and people were like, they wouldn't call it the DJI V2.
Yeah, I am 99% sure that's real now, because that's identical spot that matches the FCC filing that we're going to discuss. So,
are you for real?
Yeah, it matches exactly to the picture. Yeah.
So all the people who are like, that's fake, that's a render, it's obviously Photoshop,
including me. We eat crow. Hey, sometimes you got to eat crow. Why would you call a device V2 instead of 2? I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll find,
Well, they've never done that before. Yeah. We're going to find out later in the stream soon. The Franco Nunya, thanks for a $5 super chat. My Eachine EV300O fan is crazy loud. Curious if I can mod or fix. I know you can adjust the fan speed there, the Franco. If you think it's like buzzing, it may be the problem that Skyzone acknowledged, where the fan is buzzing against the wire, in which case contact Skyzone for support. I did say it was fake in Drone Productions. I was sure it was fake. But I mean, I guess I'm not 100% right about everything. Ask my wife. Okay. I'm so glad they made another Borat movie so I could start saying my wife again. Okay.
I don't think it ever went out of style personally, but hey.
All right. Almost to the thing that people most want to hear about. But the next thing we're going to talk about is a digital FPV system.
Yeah.
But not the DJI digital FPV system. This is the Foxeer Digisight. And the reason I am excited about this is because I think that the Runcam Racer Nano that ships with the Shark Byte, the Fat Shark Byte system, I think that camera is not that great. It's okay, but the Runcam Racer has never been my favorite, and the Runcam Racer Nano is particularly not my favorite. So here's the Foxeer Digisight. What do you think, Blunty?
I hope it is just amazing. I mean, I don't want anything but the best thing to come out of any of these systems, and I'm happy to see Fat Shark succeed. So I would love this to be amazing. I just personally think that, like, they wouldn't have rushed a system out that could have done so much better if, you know, I don't know. I just don't think the Runcam is going to be that much worse than this camera. But I'm happy to be wrong.
You think that Fat Shark shipped with like the best camera that they could deliver, and you're not convinced the Foxeer is going to do much better?
I mean, if you look at how many years in development that system had with Divimath and revisions and things like that, and then they switched to digital, and they had 8 months ago, I think, a year ago, there was a post on RC Groups about using digital only and a MIPI. And so they had a long time to plan and find a sensor that looked good for the system and to advertise the system with. I think if you're spending so much money and you're putting your whole thing into digital and you're saying analog's going to be dead in comments and stuff, like, you're going to put your best sensor on a camera to show people. You know, but
I was so confused. I agree. I was so confused that they shipped with a nano camera. Why would you do that? Why not ship with a micro? Like, obviously people are using nanos, but
yeah, I mean, a question I would have is that, can you get better out of it? You know, are we kind of capping out what you're going to get out of the sensor? You know, you talked before a little bit about, you know, how much better are these different sensors and what improvement are you really getting from different kinds of sensors like that new T-Rex and such. Yeah. And so I wonder, in the same respect, if we're near the cap already on the digital system for Shark Byte, because they knew what the cap was when they made the system, you know?
I don't want that to be true. I don't want that to be true. 100%. I want the truth to be that Shark Byte can be much better than we've seen, and the camera is holding it back. I want to see Shark Byte with like a camera like the Runcam Eagle was, with like, I think it had a 1/2-inch sensor, and maybe an actual high definition sensor, not like an analog 1500 TV line sensor. I don't know. Maybe there is a limitation there, and they just can't do any better, in which case I think if that's true, Shark Byte will always be kind of like analog plus,
sure,
as opposed to truly HD. So Tommy FPV in the chat has an interesting comment. Tommy FPV says 2020-12-12 is the release of the RTF DJI FPV combo. That is an interesting claim. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
I wonder how Tommy thinks he knows that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess speaking of DJI, maybe we should start going into it.
All right. We have 1375 viewers. It's the perfect time to start talking about DJI. But before we do that, I have to tell you about my Mio. No, sorry. Let me get a couple super chats out of the way. We've had a couple more super chats come in. I certainly don't want to neglect the beautiful people who are giving us money. Rotor Shot Productions, thanks for £5. Guillermo Nespolo, thank you for 50 Argentinian pesos. Blunty is the best of FPV on the last times. That sentence doesn't parse for me, but I think it's a compliment. 00419, thanks for a $10 super chat. Thank you very much. I helped him with his FlySky receiver, and it worked. Awesome. Yannick Rasamat, thank you for a $10 super chat. The leak was fake. That goggle we're talking about, Yannick says the leak was fake. The new goggles actually look almost identical, and there are photos in the document. I'd like to be very clear here that I am reading a super chat that someone else wrote. I am not making this statement. I'd like to be very clear about that. There are photos in the document. I think the goggles in the DJI FPV quad are actually V2, and there will be some internal upgrades to it. Says Yonik Rasamat in a super chat that he paid me $10 to read, or he or she. MotorRef FPV, thanks for a $2 super chat. TBS Crossfire versus Tracer, difference, one better. Thanks. That is a great super chat for my Q&A live stream. But this is the news, so we're not just going to go off on a wild tangent. So, I'm going to pull up these images, Blunty. There were some leaks of what were claimed to be a new drone from DJI. I'm going to pull these images up. Why don't you go ahead?
Sure. So we got a bunch of images that came out and basically flooded the internet. A bunch of people said, hey, these are fake. A bunch of people said, hey, these are real. A bunch of people asked a bunch of questions about them. So now we have FCC documents to talk about what this is. And we assume that this is the DJI FPV drone. This is the DJI FPV Controller 2 and the DJI Goggles V2, which are the three FCC documents that we have that have come out today.
And these FCC documents are linked in the show notes, but I'll put one up on screen here. When manufacturer has to file with the FCC before they can sell and release a radio device, and that is a common way that leaks of new products come out.
Yeah, so let's cover a couple common misconceptions real quick before we move forward. A bunch of people are saying that because of the timeline, right, because of the way they're written out, there's like a confidentiality agreement. It's listed out to May, so it's going to come out in May. Or there's another thing that says 180 days from filing date. These are all confidentiality agreements the FCC standardly does. So it could be any time from tomorrow until the time at which they release that information from the FCC, or even later if they decide to delay the product. So from that information alone, we don't have any information about dates. However, what we do have is historical dates for when DJI has released products before. And so if we look at the previous listings for FCC filings, the Mavic Mini 2 was filed on October 6th and launched on November 4th. The Mavic Air 2 was listed on April 9th, and was listed for sale April 27th. This is pretty common for DJI, so I would expect to see anywhere from a week to a month and a half, for this to come out. And basically what we've got is a kit that they're going to sell. What it looks like from what we know, right? With a smaller form factor controller that we leaked, that we talked about before from the images.
We showed some leaked images. Do those? Do the FCC documents seem to show the same thing that was in that leak? Are there any pictures or anything?
As far as I can tell, as from what we can see in the pictures, from what they show us, from the stuff that's not protected, it does appear to be all the same hardware that we saw in the boxes and in the leaks. And I think one of the main things that a lot of people are seeing on this is that we're seeing 2.4 gigahertz and 5.8 gigahertz both listed under the filings. Now, I'll just ask, Joshua, do you have anything you would say about this, or do you want to take the reins here at all?
It's interesting. That's pretty interesting stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for that. That great insight. So, yeah. So it looks like what we saw on the drone was a lot of people are saying it's kind of plasticky and it looks like it might break. And it looks totally different than our FPV quad. So I think that's something to address as well. I think that a lot of people are seeing this and they're going, I'm just going to rip this in a bando and break it in half. Who is this for? And I think the other important thing to consider is that I think this is DJI's play. We don't know yet, but this looks like DJI's play for a consumer FPV market. Everybody has trouble building quads or trying to get a ready to fly to work, compatibility with different firmware, software, all those kind of things, right? And now we're seeing instead a kit where it's all done for you. There's nothing extra you have to do here. There's no extra work that has to be done to get this flying and working with DJI. And knowing DJI, it's very likely that this will have some kind of automatic flight mode, automatic information, stuff like that. And what we're seeing now is, I'll just say, it looks like 2.4 gigahertz is part of the leak. We saw 2.4 gigahertz and 5.8 gigahertz on the list here. Something that I will say is it does seem that they have said specifically called out in some of the documents that we're not going to see them work together. So it doesn't look like this is some kind of multi-system where you're going to see the 2.4 and the 5.8 together, or anything like that. As far as like the video going over both or something, they do say they work separately, separate SDR. So yeah, it looks like we got a lot of information here. It's a huge dump of information. The goggles are labeled for 6S. The goggles look like, or the drone looks like it does 6S. Has a 2,000 milliamp hour battery that goes in it. Yeah, lots of great information in this leak. Tons of stuff to dig through. A lot of people have been digging through it so far. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
a couple images. It does. Yeah.
It is really interesting to look at this publicly available information, which is available to the public, which is available to anyone who can just bring up a web page and is not in any way proprietary or secret, and therefore would not in any way affect someone who was prohibited from revealing proprietary information. It's super interesting to share this with you.
Yeah, for sure. It does look like, as one of our super chatters pointed out, it does look like very similar goggles. But what I will say is that V2 goggle that we said was fake before, if you look at it, that is the bottom of the goggle. Like it looks just like a normal DJI bottom of a goggle. I don't think it's fake. I think it is the normal goggle. I think it just says V2 on it, which is exactly where this one looks like it says. So, yeah. Yeah. Anything? Any information?
I just think it's pretty cool because for months people have been asking, is the DJI Goggle V2 coming? Is like what's coming? And DJI does have a history of sort of leaking, suggesting that something's coming, but you don't know what it is. And then you're like, oh, is a new DJI goggle coming? And then it's like the Mavic 2. And you're like, okay, well, that's cool, but that's not what I was hoping for. And people have been, but then there were all these rumors with the GEP RC saying that the DJI V1 had been discontinued and no one knew what to make of that. It feels to me like once you've got an FCC filing, that's pretty definitive.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's questioning whether this is real. I think most people are just asking when it comes out and what all the other features are, I think early on we heard a lot of things about HDMI out, a lot of people were saying like, hey, is this just a software upgrade? But if it is, what's the point of making new hardware, right? So I think it's likely that we're seeing, it's possible that the original goggles had or didn't have 2.4 gigahertz. That's something else that a lot of people have speculated about and seen in different documentation. Yeah. It does look like if this is 2.4, it's probably Wi-Fi from the bands that are available, the distance and shaping of the bands and the distance between them. And I don't know if that's for over-the-air firmware updates. Some people have speculated for things like remote ID, but we don't even have a final rule yet to know exactly what that's going to look like, to know if this is even compatible.
People think that the DJI drone is behind me on the table. That is not. I don't know what you're seeing, but Yeah, the original filing for the V1 goggles that we're all using now indicated that they had support for 2.4 gigahertz, which is not that surprising. Like every Wi-Fi device in the whole world can do both 2.4 and 5 gig. But they didn't use 2.4 gig for anything. But these FCC documents seem to have emission testing and output power indications for 2.4 gig. So that certainly is interesting.
Yeah, they call out that in advertising, they advertise the goggles as 2.4 and the 5.7 to 5.8 gigahertz spectrum. So it does look like they're going to advertise this with some kind of 2.4 capability for some kind of added feature. We don't necessarily know what that is yet, but it does look like that is the case. Yeah.
So anything else, Blunty, that you found, like anything else that you can tease out from these public documents, anything you can figure out from this information that is available to anyone, that, you know, just anything you could say. I just am not really feeling like I have a lot to contribute on this conversation.
Yeah. Well, so the other things I'll say is that, you know, we don't have the new VTX, if there is one. We haven't seen one come out. We haven't seen a documentation about a Vista or Air unit or anything new like that. So this would lead us to believe that either somehow the only goggle available will work with the drone, or that the V2 goggle will work backwards compatible with all the old Air units and hardware. Which is, I think, what many of us assumed, but there was a lot of like rumor going the other way. So I think this is pretty clear from the documentation to me, and pretty clear from what we can see available, that this will work backwards compatibly.
Yeah, one of the things that one person in my comments said, this is it. If there's a V2 goggle, this is going to be, and if there's a V2 goggle and a drone, this is going to be where DJI screws over the hobbyists. This is what a person in my comments said. His argument was that DJI has been using the hobbyist market as a test bed for the last year or year and a half, whatever, 2 years, however long. And now they're going to release the DJI drone, the DJI goggle, the DJI controller, and they're going to stop supporting Betaflight and all that stuff. And I said, whether you believe that or not, I mean, I don't buy it. I don't think they needed to do that. If they wanted to, they could have just done whatever they wanted to do. But if the lack of an FCC filing for a new Air unit, if that implies that the Air unit there's not going to be a new Air unit, then that would also imply that it's going to keep supporting Betaflight just like always, and that they're not just going to screw over the hobbyist market.
Yeah, I think it doesn't make a lot of sense, certainly, for there not to have been a leak on the same day or around the same day for that information. So.
Yeah, Zorro's in the chat. He's saying we're sus, very, very sus. Yeah. Everything is sus. Well, I am very excited to. I'm not excited at all. I'm completely neutral. What makes a man turn neutral?
I'll be excited for you.
You can afford to be excited. Exploding Evo, thank you for a $20 super chat to help buy some beard products for you and me, for Blunty and JB. Yeah. Craig Corbin, $2 super chat. Thank you. MC's Creations, thanks for 5 reais, Brazilian reais. Do you think the new DJI system is going to be available for us home build quads and so on? Otherwise, I hope the Foxeer camera is amazing. Blunty, any thoughts about that question?
We really don't know, unfortunately, I think is the best way to put it. If we don't have new Air units or Vistas, but what I'll say is if it is backwards compatible, I don't expect them to stop making the V1 hardware. Maybe they will. Maybe we'll find out that suddenly they stop and there's some kind of crazy change. But the way that Cadex was talking about the Vistas leads me to believe that there is a new round of production entering for the Vistas. They talked about sourcing chipsets. They talked about producing Vistas, and there wasn't any slowdown that was happening once they figured it out. So to me, like, the Vistas aren't stopping, and there's no documentation for a new Vista. So it kind of has to be that they're still making V1s. And so I expect to see V1 VTXs continue to come out and continue to be available for people who want to build their own quad.
Yeah. There's a question in the chat, Blunty. I didn't catch whose name it was, but he asked, would you recommend buying the V1 goggles today? I mean, if you can. They're out of stock in a lot of places. What do you think about that question, Blunty?
I think if you get them really cheap, maybe. But like, if there's some kind of crazy discount or something, but no. Otherwise, I would not buy the V1 goggles right now. I mean, from what we know historically about DJI, I I think we have to assume that we're going to see a release of this kit and hopefully also a V2 goggle SKU come out in the next 1 week to 6 weeks. And if that's even close to the case, I don't think it makes sense to buy V1. I think before we saw these FCC filings, I think it was kind of up in the air, and it's, hey, maybe you do what you want to do, and it could come or it could not, or you could believe people or not. But I think now it's kind of, it would be silly to lock yourself into something that has less than something that will likely come out at a similar price. However, we don't know a price yet.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see if there's any more interesting questions here in the chat. I know this is what all 1,650 of you guys are here for. Let's see. A lot of people speculating on what the goggles might be doing with 2.4. A lot of people, Mitchell writes, and many others are wondering whether the updated goggle will support live audio. I don't know if is there any indication in the filing or anything about whether it supports audio?
Yeah, there was some information about possibly an included microphone or some kind of embedded microphone device with the DJI FPV drone. However, other than that, I did not see any more like clarity or information about that. But that would be new. Obviously, that's not anything that we've seen from any other source. So.
Bertel points out that the pictures in the SAR report look the same as the V1, according to him.
Yeah, I do think we're going to see, that's the ones you showed earlier, I think, and I do think we're going to see these goggles come out, be different internals, like maybe they've added an HDMI chip for HDMI out, so you can do it straight out of USB to HDMI, because they do have USB-C on the goggle, likely, it looks like it's the same as before. So if that's the case and they put the chip on the other side, maybe they could do the HDMI in the goggle and not have to have the dongle anymore. So
yeah, I mean, I've said this before on streams that we know that DJI had a USB-based HDMI dongle that they used at exhibitions races like a year ago at some race when the V1 goggle came out. So we know that technology is capable of existing. Let's see. What was the other question I was going to read? Let's see. Ivan Efimov, thank you for a $5 super chat. If the new system is not going to play well with racing, it will be a multi-GP fault again, right? Not sure. I can't quite. That question doesn't really make sense to me. Will it be multi-GP's fault if it doesn't play well with racing? There's no reason DJI can't be used with races. The timing systems work. It's the HDMI out to the DVR that doesn't work.
Yeah, I have heard some weirdness with a little bit of the timing, but I believe if you dial it in and get it like nailed in, it's okay. You just can't time it exactly like analog, I think, just because the retransmission kind of messes with like when the signal goes up and down, I believe is the issue.
Yeah.
But I do know people have successfully timed it with the normal analog timing systems.
Yeah, I do too. It's the ability to record DVR because you don't have HDMI out or any kind of video out. That's the kicker. MKME Lab, very good to see you in the chat. MKME Lab and Skadoosh both think that the new goggle will support the old quads, assuming that this FCC filing indicates that there is a new goggle, which I would neither. I don't know if that's true or not. A lot of people seem to believe that that's true. It seems like that's a reasonable conclusion from the fact that there's a government document with the word V2 in the picture. But I mean, I don't know a lot about any of that. Nevertheless, MKME Labs thinks that it will support the old quads. Yeah, they still support the Phantom. Craig Corbin, we got your question about audio. $5 super chat. Thank you, Craig Corbin. Somebody in the chat pointed out that the Vista doesn't have audio. It doesn't have a microphone at all. So the Vista can't support audio unless they people have taken the Vista apart. There's no microphone in there. So
right. Yeah, I think I think they build some system for that, right? The other thing I thought was interesting that this isn't part of this necessarily, it's just conjecture here, but somebody pointed out to me the other day that the air unit does have 2 extra pins that are not used. So just something else to consider, that it is possible that they could do other features or other things. Maybe you have out on 2 pins there and you could run a microphone, who knows? So there are maybe other possibilities there. The Vista obviously only has the 6, but the air unit has 8. So
right. I don't think DJI has indicated much interest in audio so far. Is there anything in the FCC filing, asks Michael Shea, to indicate anything to do with support for remote ID? Blunty?
Yeah, Not that I saw directly. It would just be the Wi-Fi idea, but I did not see personally, and I didn't have anybody send me anything that directly looked like that. And yeah, again, like, obviously DJI is in these conversations, and they have some good idea of the rule that's coming out. But I wouldn't think they would know exactly what rule's coming out immediately, and so I would expect them to wait. However, they have implemented remote ID in other areas. I think France just got like activated remote ID through DJI, and you can do it through their app on existing devices. So
it's hard to see how the DJI FPV system would support or interact with remote ID. Obviously, they have a digital data link back to their goggles, so in theory. But like they don't have a GPS, so like they would need to.
Sure, but they know distance. So we do know they know distance because of packet timing. I'm going to go on the devil's advocate here, right? So we do know they know distance because of packet timing, because they can cut off at a distance. We do know they like have a hard lock, so 8.2 miles or whatever. The system cuts out because it knows the distance from timing.
Right.
And then if you think about that, and it also knows the orientation of the antennas, so it could. To figure out with the orientation of the antennas and the detected distance, like by looking at the power on each antenna, where that air unit is in physical space, I would guess.
That seems iffy. I mean, if I was DJI and I wanted to do that, I would write a firmware update that requires the flight controller to report GPS to the air unit. But even that's not going to work, because the weak link in that is the flight controller with the open source software on it. The FAA is not going to allow an open source hardware and software platform to be compliant with remote ID in any world, because you could just change the code and make it non-compliant, and that's exactly what they don't want. So I don't really see how the DJI FPV system it's obvious that a Mavic can be made remote ID compliant fairly easily. But I don't see how the DJI FPV system could be made remote ID compliant. That's why all of my quadcopters are 249 grams.
Yes.
And also, this is actually a ground vehicle. No, I don't fly it. I don't know. Let's see. We got a ton of other super chats. Let me get them out of the way before I start missing them. Exploding Evo, thanks for a $20 super chat. DJI makes drones for everyone. This is not a Bando Ripper. He's talking about the leaked pictures of the drone. It's a Mavic FPV. Also, with the release of a possibly consumer-grade drone, HDMI out does make sense. I mean, I feel like HDMI out has made sense since day one, but they haven't done it. Also, press F for orange matching JB's shirt. Thanks for Exploding Evo. Danny Bessinger, thanks for a $5 super chat. DJI used us as a prototype beta test group to polish a much more profitable product to their standard cinematic user base. That comment is actually from Base on 8000. What do you think of that?
100%. I mean, that's something we talked about like a month or two ago. I think this is eventually going to consumers and cinema. Like the whole point of this system will eventually be, I think you'll see a commercial package pushed at commercial cinematic and production, and you'll see a consumer package pushed at getting people and camera drones into FPV, so they have something else to buy from DJI and something they can't get packaged anywhere else. You can go to any Chinese company and get any camera drone that kind of works like DJI. They've copied in some way or another, this or that. They've got good or bad cameras, they've got tracking and all this stuff. But nobody right now has anything like this DJI FPV drone in the same package and setup that DJI has, especially with the quality of the system. Right now, nobody can even do that, because you'd have to package a DJI system to do it. So,
yeah, I don't think there was. I mean, I have to hesitate a little bit when I make statements about what DJI will or won't do, because I would have and did say that the product that they have currently released, I was like, oh, they're not going to make that. They're not going to do that. They're not going to give you DVR for analog input. They're not going to put effort into fixing the latency on the analog input. They don't care about analog, and they did. And there's so many other things they've done that I was like, nah, why would they do that? So as I start to say, I don't think DJI would do this, I realize I really have to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. But I don't see much of a world where DJI builds a racing drone as we know it. That just doesn't seem like who they are as a company or who their customer is. To me.
I could see a spec racing drone, because I believe they're working with, I mentioned before, I think they're working with racing groups in China. to help develop the system. I could certainly see a spec racing series that they push to be HD racing, and everybody's on the same footing, so there's not kind of a compatibility issue. They're providing groups or people with ways to time it better for digital. They build in certain whatever it is, right? That makes it easier to do this system. That would be my thinking.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that look at the props. The fact that it has DJI snap-on props tells you all you need to know.
Yeah.
Right. You're not going to be bashing this around treetops. Yeah. So,
Sure.
Rocket Robbie points out the leaked video did have race gates in it. Oh well, clearly that's. I said a racing drone as we know it. I mean, a DJI. Look at the photos, the leaked photos. If those photos are accurate, it's got plastic cowling. It's like I'm not going to be maddying that into a brick wall. It's not going to survive. That's how it feels to me.
Very true.
Anyway, let me see what else we got. Camman Rants, thanks for a $5 super chat. Very interesting that in all of these leaked photos, there aren't any of the batteries. Austin Blair, thank you for a $5 super chat. Still holding out hope for a standalone HDMI out, so I'm not tethered to a smart controller. Yeah, please DJI. We
I'll just
all
mention
want HDMI.
There was a battery in there. It was a 6S 2000 milliamp hour, I believe, for the drone.
Okay.
So it is in there somewhere, if you dig.
Eric Mangus, thanks for $2. We're not talking about the day at the range right now, which is the news live stream, so we're going to try and stay on topic. Thank you for your super chat. The Franco Nunya, thanks for a $5 super chat. This is Blunty's cut of my other super chat. He needs more conditioner for that fabulous beard. You don't use product on your beard, you said, or your hair.
I don't. Beard oil, though. I would take beard oil.
Okay, send Blunty beard oil.
Yeah, one thing I'll say is, where is it here? Do we think the price will be much higher than V1? I have to say that I don't think so. However, it's a DJI product, so we could see it go up. I think the pre-release information of like conversion from other currencies was like $1,500 for the entire kit. So if that's the case, I think we land somewhere in the realm of the same price for goggles. It just depends on kind of where you think each price lands in that group. So
Skadoosh pointing out that the DJI goggle doesn't have a power button. We raged at Fat Shark for years about the lack of a power button, but DJI gives us no power button and nobody cares. Phantom FPV, thank you for being here, man. Good to see you.
Somebody asked where they can see the photos. So if you check in the description, you've got everything listed in the description. You'll see 3 FCC filings. And you can check through those FCC filings, and you'll see the pictures up in there.
Specifically, the SAR report has drawings.
Yeah. There's a label. There's like a FCC ID label that has a little bit, and then the SAR has the rest of the drawings. So.
Yeah. Drone Excursion, thanks for a $5 super chat. Game changer with how you won't need an action cam to get high quality smooth video. Let's see. Exploding Evo, thanks for $5. I'm not going to read that username, but thank you for your $2 super chat. Marley Lepo, thanks for 50 Norwegian kroner. Totally neglecting all the patrons in the Discord, not reading their comments, but let's see. Basin 8000 says, my Hollywood producer buddy thinks the potential shots he can get with an FPV rig opens up possibilities now. I think that as you look at those photos of that drone and you say, who is this for? It doesn't feel like that drone in those photos, whether that's the DJI V2 or just something else. It doesn't feel like that drone is a freestyle drone or a racing drone. It looks like it is a camera drone. It's got a 2-axis gimbal, for God's sakes. It looks like it's a camera drone, but to be faster and more agile than like maybe a Mavic.
Sure. Maybe you get those chasing shots you really want to get, or you lock in with a Mavic or an Inspire or something. But maybe you're not spending that kind of money, and maybe you can get a little more freedom when you're moving around in the shot.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I would expect from the system. Because otherwise, where does it come in? If it's still a stabilized drone, then it's just a stabilized drone with a camera that tilts. There's not much any difference.
Sorry, Blunty.
Go ahead.
So the thought that you just gave me is DJI is smart enough not to cannibalize their own market. They wouldn't release 2 drones that overlap too much. They're just smart enough not to do that. So whatever this is, it's not a replacement for like a Mavic Mini. So as you think about what is it, think about all the slots that they've already filled and assume it's not going to too much fill those slots.
Yeah.
All right. Big Turbo 59, thanks for a $10 super chat. I just received my DJI HD setup. Should I return them and wait for the V2 or just use the V1 till the V2s come out and then upgrade? Will my air units work with the V2 goggles? If you just bought the V1, what should you do? That's not a question that I am capable of acknowledging even exists. So I'm going to let Blunty take that one.
Yeah, my opinion on that is, can you wait 2 months to not have a goggle or get away with it? Because if that's the case, man, I would probably consider returning those goggles. So look at the return policies. There's a restocking fee. Like, are you going to pay out the butt? Are you going to pay shipping and stuff? But if it's a simple return or you bought them locally, man, it's going to be hard for me to tell you to keep them. However, here's what I'll say, is what major difference are we going to see between the sets of goggles? We don't know yet. So maybe you're going to wait 2 months and see 3 different upgrades that don't matter to you at all. We just don't know that yet. But with the information that we have here, we know the V2s are coming, likely within 2 months, likely sooner than that. And if that's the case, we do know the air unit will most likely work with the V2 goggles. There's no indication that it wouldn't. Yeah, man, I just can't. I would have to recommend you return those if it's not like crazy exorbitant or a hassle or restocking.
Yeah, you keep saying 2 months, Blunty. Why do you keep saying 2 months as the time window?
I think 2 months is the farthest. I just think if you look at the dates from FCC to release, the longest we've seen any time in the last couple of years for any of the DJI products has been 2 months. DJI knows how FCC filings work. They have done this before. Yeah. They know when it's going to come out to people. Yeah.
I need to apologize to everyone on the stream who just heard a USB device unplug and plug in. That was my computer. Sorry. That's my bad. Blind FPV, I wanted to acknowledge this, and I'm glad that you brought it up. Blind FPV says, I feel like Bardwell leaked some of this to Blunty. If I were under NDA and then I were to take Blunty aside and tell him all the secrets and then go on the live stream and like pretend that I hadn't done that, that would be a violation of the NDA. It would be unethical. It would be dishonest. There's no world in which I would jeopardize my good relationship with DJI and risk getting sued by doing something like that. Blunty, for the record, have we prepped this at all?
100% no.
Okay.
You know, there's nothing you've given me. There's no extra information you've shared that I haven't received from anywhere else. And I found the FCC filings and all this information on my own accord. You know, it would, the best way I would put it is, imagine you were under NDA and imagine we had this show together. We would not be having this segment if I was given private information about you. That makes no sense. We're just like blatantly breaking an NDA through another person. That doesn't make any freaking sense. You know what I'm saying?
In fact, when I saw these FCC filings come out, I thought, we have to cover this in the news. Like, we have to. And I thought, this is public information. The FCC filings are public information. There's no world in which the stuff in those filings is protected by an NDA. It is fair game to talk about. That's how NDAs work. Once something comes out via some other means, it's fair game to talk about it. You just cannot be the first to release it. And I thought, well, how are we going to sort of walk this line? And the way to walk the line, Blunty, is that if I was under NDA, I would just not say anything, and you have no proprietary inside information, so you could say whatever the heck you want because you don't know anything secret. And that is, in fact, what we're doing. So.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, anything, obviously, I've said, if you're thinking it's some secret information, it's not. It's what's in the FCC filing, and it's my conjecture. If that happens to line up with anything that ends up being correct, just ends up being correct because we found it from the FCC filing, or it was a good guess, you know? We've had this information for a long time. We've been theory correcting about this stuff for months. So I don't think it's crazy for us to get a couple things right. But I hope people understand that we wouldn't do something like that, and you wouldn't jeopardize any kind of relationship you had. So.
Well, and if you go back and you rewatch this, you'll see that any of the there have been times when I asked you a question from the chat, and there may have been some times when I made a statement about something that we already have talked about in the past, but I am not touching this exact leak with a 10-foot pole, and you can infer from that what you like. Because here's the thing.
Just a couple.
If we start talking about publicly available information, then it might be way too easy to be like, oh yeah, nod along and confirm some private information, you know, even if it was like a logical inference. And I don't want to even get close to that line. So.
Yep.
All righty.
One more thing I just want to mention. I've had quite a few people I've seen them ask. I believe we had a super chat about it as well. Somebody asked about the iFlight crystal antenna or the Axie HD fitting. It does look like from what information we've seen from the FCC leaks that all those will still attach the same. It's all still the same external body on the goggle, and it's the same 5.8 gigahertz antenna connectors, as far as we know. So I haven't seen any reason to say that none of that would be compatible.
Okay.
So,
all right. All right. Well, we are coming up to where we would normally end the show, but I think we're just going to go a little long today. We normally do an hour, but I feel like this topic was well worth taking some extra time to talk about it. Those documents, the FCC documents, are linked in the video description in the show notes. You can go download look at them, and pick through them at your leisure and try to figure out whatever. Also, people are talking about it online and so forth, Facebook and whatnot. So, yeah, very exciting. Let's move on to the next topic of the day, which is our community spotlight segment. Oh, it feels so good to just be able to talk freely and not have to like... Okay. Community spotlight, normally when people say that, they mean they're going to show some freestyle video, but that's not what we're doing here. We're going to focus on a project, some program or utility or app that helps you out. And the one we're looking at today is, let me bring up the YouTube video because the GitHub page is kind of boring. But this guy is Mika H. No music. No copy strike, please. Mika H is the creator of this utility. And the utility, does he have a video up about it?
I did not see one.
See it, dang. So this is a GitHub project. If you have a non-GoPro camera and you want to make SuperView-like footage out of your non-GoPro camera, this is a utility that does that. So if you have a Runcam 5 or something like that. There have been other utilities out there that do this, but sometimes they're complicated to use or require you to install Python or whatnot. This is, I think, have you used this yet, Blunty?
I have not. I do know it is Mac and Windows compatible, though, and it's not like a whole thing to install. It's
just like an app, right?
Yeah, it's an app. It's an Electron-based app, but yeah, it's an app you just install and run, and it works. Yeah, and it takes 4:3 video, pulls it to 16:9, doing the non-native, the SuperView scaling instead of the native scaling, and it does it with the FFmpeg encoder, so it's all open source, and it is on GitHub as we showed. So there's a link to that in the description as well.
Yeah.
So you could even look at it, how it works, edit it, mess with it. But it seems like it's a really cool option for free, that you can do on any footage.
Yeah, it's free. Yeah. The one thing about this that I think, I mean, this is cool, don't get me wrong, but the thing about GoPro SuperView is that it is using the vertical field of view of the 4.3 sensor. And then it has to stretch that to 16:9, and SuperView is how they solve that. This app will give you a SuperView stretch, but it won't give you that vertical field of view. So it's not as good as GoPro SuperView is what it is. It's a big deal. Maybe if you had something like an Insta360 Go and you were shooting a square image or a 4.3 image, that's got such a massive field of view, it would make sense to stretch it. But so really cool project. Thank you, Mika, for making that, and very happy to be able to feature you there.
Yeah. So next up, a lot of people are talking about the Happymodel Moblite 6 and 7. These are new drones that Happymodel's teased, and it looks like they've gone on pre-order. I believe they're shipping end of the month, is what I've heard. And yeah, these are like super light versions of the Mobula 6 and the Mobula 7. So
I'm trying to bring the picture up. My browser window is dying right now. Maybe because everybody... There we go. I got it.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got Moblite 6 at 18.5 grams and the Moblite 7 at 19.5 grams. And I believe these are new Whoop boards. These are new Diamond F4 flight controllers. They actually look like they have pretty good solder pads. They're not using plugs. They're actually using pads.
And
Yeah,
credit
and
to Multi-Rotor Guide, who is, I believe, the first to leak this. Oh, no, I also saw Albert Kim talking about them on Facebook. So credit to them. We're just kind of jumping on their coattails. 19 grams for a brushless whoop. I remember the days when people said, oh, brushless whoops are okay, but they'll never be as light as a brushed whoop, and you'll never get those lightweight flight characteristics. I guess never say never.
Yeah, we definitely have to see how these fly, but I'm super excited by these, man. The smaller, the better, and it's a huge percentage. 5% to 10% is a lot of weight, especially having a 75, like a Mobula 7, a 75 millimeter at 19.5 grams, under 20 grams. Where right now we're like 20 to 22 grams for a like a normal size, like 65 millimeter whoop. So also, it looks like it has the Runcam Nano 4 Lite, which is only a gram. And that's a new camera I think we haven't seen yet. So unless they're calling the Nano 4 the Nano 4 Lite, but I do believe that's a new camera we're going to see come out.
Okay, 1 gram camera. That's crazy. We have to point out, and people in the chat are pointing this out, that these designs were originally developed by Mr. Shutterbug. There he is.
There's Henry.
Henry is the star of Blunty's live streams. Got something to talk about.
I do have a dog cam on my live stream.
Yeah, Blunty live streams on his own channel. So definitely his channel is linked in the video description. And when he streams, Henry has his own camera. People are pointing out that Mr. Shutterbug, you look up Mr. Shutterbug, is his YouTube channel Mr. Shutterbug?
I believe it is, yeah. Yeah, and he did one very similar to this. I think his was like 16.5 grams. He got super light.
Oh, yeah, he's crazy.
He was using like Rennie screws, and he had like a motor wire as the video wire to the power to the camera. Like he was going super, like as little weight as possible. So
I'm trying to look up Mr. Shutterbug here and give him the credit he deserves. I think he just the world's lightest 70. Yeah, here we go. 1 month ago.
But no biggie, I fixed it.
The world's lightest. Yeah, I already watched some of this video actually. The world's lightest 75 millimeter whoop is amazing. This is, I think, where this design originally came from. Now, no slight on anybody else. Like, there is absolutely nothing wrong. I like to say, people are like, that's cloning. That's stealing. And I like to say, look, if I go to a restaurant, I eat a hamburger, and I'm like, damn, that is a good hamburger. What's in that? It's like garlic and salt in it. And then I go and I make a similar hamburger. Did I steal the... No, I just made if you can... There's nothing proprietary about looking at this and going, oh, I'm going to make that too. Should they maybe give credit? You could argue. But be that as it may, credit to Mr. Shutterbug for his design. And if you're not the kind of person to build your own, you could buy it. So that's kind of cool. Let's see. We got one more. He uses lightweight solder too. What, does he not use lead solder because it's too heavy?
Yeah, man, he is... He's super intense. Every little tiny part. I mean, he shaved the little edges off of the top of the frame so that he saved 0.12 grams,
Insane.
Yeah.
All right, we got one more. Yes, indeed, we got one more. It is the TBS Source One. Now, the Source One is this frame made by TBS, and the cool thing about the Source One is that it is completely open source developed. That means you can literally download the CAD files, and if you have a CNC machine, you can cut this yourself, and that's the whole point. It's community developed, and the V4 has been a little controversial. They made it lighter. Well, what could be bad about that, Blunty?
Well, I think a lot of people are wondering if they made some, what would you call it? Some
compromises?
There we go. Sorry, some compromises. On this quad. So we got 4 millimeter. So it's 100 grams. We're coming in right at the same as the Glide, the FPV Cycle Glide. But it is a 4 millimeter arms instead of 5 millimeter arms, which are on the Glide. There's some bolts sticking out of the middle of that bottom plate there. So I personally can tell you that the Skyliner does this as well. And I broke my first ESC because I mounted it too close to the bottom plate. So something to watch out for, and you lose a little room.
Arguably, that's user error. Arguably,
yes, 100%. 100%. I still use that frame. They did change the mounting holes from the first, from the V3 of this. So all the GoPro mounts will need to be redesigned for this frame. It does just look like they made a few different concessions. That's what I was looking for.
I mean, I'm a fan of lightweight, but I feel like by the time you're in the 110 to 115 gram range, you're light and you've given up a little bit of durability, like everybody who flies the FPV Cycle Glide breaks arms, and that's just that's part of it. You have, if you want a quad that will be less likely to break arms, it's going to weigh 130 grams, maybe. But going to 4mm arms, and by the time you're down near 100 grams, you may, and like I saw this post here on the TBS Lounge. Let's see if TBS has taken it down. They don't usually do that, but I was like, wouldn't it be terrible if they took it down before the live stream? Here's the post. Anyone else think the Source One V4 is a shitty redesign? Bolt sticking out the middle of the bottom plate where the stack goes. 3D files all need to be redesigned due to the mounting hole changes, all to fit the DJI stuff in. Good thing the V3 is open source. Can't see too many people swapping to this. And some people saying it's no big deal. This to me seems like the big question. Narrowing, they made the arms narrower and kept them at 4mm, so it's going to make them weaker. Yeah, so
it's an interesting decision. Kebab has, for whatever reason, decided like on the Glide Lite is 85 grams, but still has 5mm arms.
Yes, interesting. So. The prototype apparently was 6mm thick arms, and then they went to 4mm. Why? I mean, it should be trivial to just if you want to cut it with 6mm arms. It's not hard to do, and that is the good thing. Sorry, Bunty, go ahead.
Glide Lite is 4.5mm. So that's interesting.
No, maybe it's, but the Glide Lite is the ultra lightweight version and is known to compromise durability. So you're kind of making the point.
It's a full 15 grams lighter, and you know, they decided still they could do 4.5mm arms. So it is interesting to. I do wonder if somebody's going to crash these things over and over again. If you see the arms hold up more or less than a similarly spec'd frame. Yeah, I think it is an interesting argument to have whether the thin arm versus the thick arm in either direction, which is the most important. And it might just depend on what kind of crashing you do. You know, are you hitting the ground or a wall in a bando or those sorts of things? So.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the thinner arms because the thinner arms in terms of the width, not the thickness. Nobody puts ESCs on arms anymore except for that one guy who's going to leave me a comment right now. You know who you are. And so the thinner arms, they take up less. They have less drag. They take up less of your prop wash. And what are you pointing at? Yeah,
those individual ESCs on that class.
Right, you're the guy. So I like the idea of making them thinner, but I really think 4mm is on the edge. So somebody's going to cut them. Somebody's going to cut them at 6mm. Everyday FPV says the Glide Hammer is a monster. I think the arms are 6mm. Yep, they are Everyday FPV. And do you know what Bob Ruge told me about the Glide Hammer? He said the Glide Hammer was a mistake. This is not a direct quote, so please don't take it as that. The problem with the Glide Hammer is that the arms don't break, so then the bottom plate breaks. At which point, it's a much bigger deal to change the bottom plate than to change the arms. Bob Ruge was like, it's just, you know, you're just sort of moving the break point around. So, Sync Happens 86 asks in the Discord, will you still be able to get thicker arms? So that's the beauty of this frame. It's open source. Anybody can sell it. Anybody can cut it. TBS is selling it with 4mm arms. If there's a huge outcry, they'll probably swap it to 6mm arms. That's easy. If not, anybody else, Race Day Quads, Get FPV, whoever wants to, can cut this with 6mm arms or whatever else they want, and it'll be fine. So. All right, let me read a couple more super chats, Itsblunty, and then let's finish up. Exploding Evo, thanks for $5 super chat. No one likes that guy who puts his ESCs on his arms anyway. I know more than one pilot who says I'm going back from 4-in-1s to individual ESCs because they're more durable.
A lot of people in chat are pointing out Ladrib uses individual ESCs.
That's who I was thinking of. Yeah, no, that's the guy. Yeah, some people, Marty Gerdenk, thank you, Pyrodrone cuts their own Source One frames. Yeah, some people buy the Source One frames from TBS as a sort of distributor wholesaler, but some people take the open source CAD files, cut them themselves, and sell them. And either way is fine. The licensing agreement for the Source One explicitly allows for that. Speedy Turtle wants to know, do you think the V3 will go away? Well, that's what people are afraid of. Because you can't buy the V2 anymore, but maybe if there's a controversy, they'll swap it up. Thingy, thank you for a $5 super chat. What's the link to the pre-order for the Happymodel? Is there a link to the pre-order, Blunty?
Makerfire, I just say look it up on Makerfire, Mob Light 6 and 7. Or also you can check, I was going to say, if you look at the link, I believe you have the link in chat for the multi-rotor guide, and I believe he links on the multi-rotor guide page, link to Makerfire as well.
Okay. Fuang Ho, thank you for a $2 super chat. What do you think about Race Day Quad's Facebook post? You're talking about Race Day Quad's Facebook post where Tyler Brennan was basically, why is no one else in FPV seem to care about remote ID? We will actually be talking more about that in next week's stream. We wanted to cover it, but this week's stream has already gone long, so we're going to push it to next week. So definitely come back at 6 p.m. on Tuesday next week for more. Digiblur DIY, thanks for a $5 super chat. FCC filings are always a gold mine of info. Thanks for being real as always. Steve King, $5 super chat. Meteor FPV, €5 super chat. Greetings from Italy. Do you expect DJI to drop all V1 firmware updates after the release of the V2 goggles? No one could say. Does DJI? The question I always ask is, has DJI done that with previous hardware? Do they still release firmware updates for, like, how far back do they go? Like, probably not the Phantom V1, but...
Yeah. I think critical updates is probably where it'll roll into. I imagine we'll maybe see 1 or 2 after release. And the other thing is, who knows if it's the same base? It could be the same base, right? So you could see that, like, because the goggles are so similar, the firmware updates actually apply to both, and they just, like, enable or disable certain features based on the versions.
Yeah. So it seems unlikely that DJI would abandon a Gen 2 product or Gen 1 product that is only a couple years old. That seems unlikely, just based on their behavior. Exploding Evo, thanks for a $2 super chat. Tyler Johnson, $5 Canadian. I think we got that. Will the iFlight Crystal or Axie HD antennas fit the V2 goggle? Yeah. The Axie HD stick on, so they would certainly fit. Burquad, 19 Norwegian kroner. And that is it. We are caught up. How? That was a good news segment, Blunty. Thank you so much.
Yeah, lots of information in that one. So.
Time for me to go get another gin and tonic. Thank you guys so much as well. If you enjoy the stream, thank you for leaving a super chat. If you want to join a Patreon, this is the part where I plug, because the real sponsor of my stream is not Mio Squirts. It's you. It's you, beautiful people. And one of the ways you can do that is by joining Patreon. There's a link in the video description. And if you do that, you can hang out with these beautiful people over here in the Discord, whose messages I mostly have been reading and not responding to, because, like, they're all just having a great conversation over here, and they just all got it covered. But anyway, that's going to do it for the news today. Have a good night, everybody. Happy flying.